And good evening. Hope you all are doing good tonight. Here we are once again in my pottery studio. This is Larry, or Gilbert in the SCA. Figured tonight I would do a little trimming demonstration of the bowl that I threw Thursday night, the marbled brown and white. But first what I'd like to do is go over some of the tools I have that I use to do trimming with. Just some simple loop tools, different shapes and sizes, get different cuts, take off a different amount, and just kind of the basics of what I use here, plus one that I made out of some strap steel from they use around strapping lumber and stuff, and it makes a nice cut. And if I want to, I can do something called chattering, which is where I hold it and let it make little notches. I'll show that in a later video. And also my stamp. And trimming is what we're going to be doing, is taking the bottom of a form and giving it a nice defined foot to help define the shape of it, lift it off the table or surface a little bit, just to make it look a little bit more finished. And with that, I think we'll get started. After I had thrown the marbleized bowl, I threw a second bowl, and that's the one I'm going to trim first. And the way I do it is I use another bat that has this rubberized shelf material on it to hold the pot, so I don't have to tap center or use little wedges of clay to hold everything down. I still have to center the piece on the wheel, but for me, I've tried tap centering. It doesn't work well. I end up knocking the piece out of position, and I've ruined more than I've successfully trimmed using tap center method. What I'm looking for is out of center position, and then I just move it a little bit more toward the center of the wheel. Still not quite there. Yeah, we can work at that. That's workable. As they tell you, or used to tell you in driver's education, speed kills. As with throwing, as you're throwing a form taller and taller and taller, you want to slow your wheel speed down. When you're trimming, you don't want to be going very fast either, because that can cause, if your tool catches, you'll throw your pot off the wheel and destroy it and make it look ugly and bad and all those kind of fun things. Yeah, I'll go with that. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn a little bit here so you can see what the tool's doing. Lay the tool in. It's actually going to pull ribbons of clay off of the pot to help you get it to a thickness. And especially with bowls, yeah, I put a lot of grooves on there. Those will go away shortly. Especially with bowls, you want to try to have an even thickness all the way from the foot through the body, and that's what you accomplish by doing trimming. Is removing excess clay that you need when you throw the pot, otherwise it'll collapse and fall in on itself. Some tools are a little bit more aggressive, so you want to be careful when you use them. You can take off more than you think, and it's happened more than once, cut through the bottom of a pot. And then the pot is no good. I don't know if it'll show up on the phone. My tool was chattering just a little bit, so there's some ripples right here that I'm going to have to work out. They'll come out fairly easy with a different tool. I use my left hand to keep a little bit of pressure down on the pot to just help make sure it doesn't move, go off center. That tapping was to help me tell by sound how thick the clay is, and so I can know if I need to remove more or if I'm at the point that I want to be at. The higher pitch the sound, the thinner the clay is. As you see, I've got a little bit of a undercut here. I'm going to try to leave that, or I'll put another one back in, and because that would be a nice place for the glaze to come down and stop, so it doesn't flow off and run onto the shelf when I'm firing the pot. What I'm doing here is trying to level the bottom off a little bit, at least where the foot ring is going to be. Because it had gotten uneven when I took it off the bat. What I did there was I just set a line as to how far out I want to go to establish the inside of the foot ring underneath the bowl. All this clay that I'm cutting off will eventually get recycled, mixed in with some of the other clay that I've got, allowed to get wet and then be laid out to dry, doing reclaim. And yes, that is something I really need to start doing, is reclaiming my clay. I've got so much. One of the things I like to do with bowls is, because the inside of the bowl has a curve to it, I try to trim the underside of the bottom to have a complementary curve to go with it, so that it's try to maintain an even thickness all the way through. Pretty close to where I want it to be. All I'm doing right now is just smoothing out where I had previously carved out to get rid of some of the ridge lines caused by the other tools. Take the sharp corners off. Give a bit more definition to the foot. using my finger to kind of burnish the clay, compress it down, get rid of check for any real high spots or something that might cause scratching. If it's not taken care of now, you can take care of it before you put it into bisque fire it, and even after you bisque fire it, you can still check it again and sand it off. At this point, because the clay is a little bit wet still, you're not getting all of the dust that you would get when it's bone dry just before bisque firing, or the dust that comes off after you've fired it. Pick it up, take a look, see how it feels. Not too bad. Still a little thick down here on the bottom. I'm going to leave it like that though. I kind of like how it feels. It's got a nice weight to it. Probably a little heavier than some like, but to me it's a comfortable weight because it's going to stay seated on the table. And last thing you do when you're done trimming is you put your maker's stamp into it, and then you set it off to the side and let it continue to dry. And what I do is I will set my bowls upside down to control the moisture on the inside of the bowl so it dries more evenly from the outside and is less likely to crack. And now we're going to trim this one. What I'm doing is I'm checking to see how thick this is down here and how thick the sides are, see where I need to go. Take the bottom down to probably this level here. Bring it in, 1/4 of an inch. Yeah, not bad. Better. And same process as the other one. We start by taking off, get a rough idea of the shape we want, and then refine that shape down. Again, just a different tool for taking off clay quickly.
Now this is also going to reveal the variations in the clay.
Right, you'll see the variation much better as this cleans up. I'll slow it down here in just a moment. And this is the kind of thing you can get with mixing 2 different clays, called agate-ware. Is one term for it. I'm sure there are others. This is the first time I've actually done this on purpose. I've done one other piece that did it accidentally, liked it, so I decided I would try it again. I do not have documentation for them actually doing this within the SCA period. That is a rabbit hole I don't know if I want to go down. And looking at this clay, trimming it with that variation is interesting.
Does that make it harder to judge where you're cutting?
Yes, it is. It's making it a little bit more difficult for me to tell where I'm cutting at. And again, that's another reason for doing sounding check. A little bit higher sound here, a little bit thicker, duller sound down here, so I can go a little bit deeper. Just need to do so carefully. My thoughts on this bowl are just to do a clear glaze on the inside. Probably a clear glaze on the outside too. I haven't decided if I'm going to glaze the outside of it yet or not. We'll have to see how it comes out. Almost. No, I'm not taking great deep cuts out because, well, that's how you end up cutting through the bottom of the pot. And that's something I really don't want to do with this. I would like to have this come out nicely. I don't know if you can see it, but as I'm going across here, the tool tip is bouncing a little. That's why I'm doing this, is to try to even that off. I'm taking very, very thin, shallow cuts. Not all the way across because I don't need to, because I'm going to hollow this out. There we go. I've picked up that I kind of like to curve this foot, give it a rounded profile versus square. Just a personal preference. Each potter does things a little differently. Some production potters are going for speed, so they'll often have a tool that will have a form shape built into it that they'll use, kind of like this rib here, which can be used for the foot of a bowl or a cup or a mug. Which is, I've used that a few times. There are actually videos on YouTube that are just potters trimming, and that's all it is they're just trimming, because it's actually kind of fascinating to watch, especially when you're working with this multicolored clay.
It is kind of satisfying seeing the ribbons of clay come off.
Any questions or comments from anybody out there? Or
Kathy says it is surprisingly calming and addictive to watch those ribbons come free.
it is, even for me, the maker. It's one of the things I really find interesting when I watch other potters' videos to pick up techniques and information, is when they get into trimming, how they do it. It's calming. It's a zen moment. There's concentration, but it's not rushed or hurried. It's like Bob Ross. It sounds funny, but it really is very much like that. You're not in a hurry. You're not rushing. You're just taking your time, refining the form down to something that feels good in your hands, that you hope the person who eventually may purchase this will find pleasing as well. That's one of the things I've found since I've started making pottery, is I now look at the foot of a pot or a plate or a bowl or a cup, because that can actually be kind of telling about the person that made it. Not in a bad way, just in, is this production work? Is this piecework where they're just making pieces because they enjoy the craft, the art? Everybody looks at pot for different reasons. And as a maker, you know, I'm looking at them like, how'd they do that? Oh, that's how they did that. Oh, that bottom is just about right. I'm going to take a little bit off of this ring. I think it's a little on the heavy side. But I'm going to do it maintaining that curve that I've developed that I like. A little more off the inside here. Sharp edge, trim that down.
Galen says she wants to feel all the bits in her hand so she's sure it's hers.
Yep. And every culture looks at pottery differently. When you're looking at a cup, how does it look aesthetically? How does it, not just the outside of the cup, but the inside as well? How does the rim look? There are cultures where a perfectly round, smooth rim, like a lot of Americans like, is frowned on because it's too uniform. It doesn't have its own personality or its own character. And we are done, mostly. There, now we're done. And that is just by taking a white and a brown clay that will fire to the same temperature, mixing them together to a point, and throwing and forming what's called agate-ware. Now, I do need to take and clean up the inside a little bit. I'm not going to do that on camera because I'm scared. I've got to come up with a way to set it so it doesn't move a lot, and use probably this tool to clean the inside. But when I get it done, I will post a picture of it so that everybody can see. Hopefully you've enjoyed tonight's little trimming demonstration. I'll be doing more videos from time to time. I think the next one's going to be a walk around of my potter's wheel, how I have it set up, why, explain a little bit about the modern wheel and the period wheel for SCA, and some of the tools and things that I use with it. So on that note, have a good night, stay safe, wash your hands, enjoy your family. Good night.